Holy smokes. Holy smokes. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugart. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our ever-growing channel. Smash that like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. Share it with your neighbor. Share it with your significant other. Share it with your psychiatrist. Welcome in to the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Welcome in. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a PATC legend. With your comments and with your phone calls, breaking news. We had a break in. We just dropped a video on this subject. Breaking news, ACC is expanding. Stanford, California, and SMU will be joining the ACC conference. The invitations have been handed out. Who flipped? Who flipped? Now, we just dropped an episode about 10 minutes before the breaking news. And in our episode 299, and we also talked about the Thursday night games, last night games, we said UNC saying that they're going to be a no vote. Well, if UNC is going to be a no vote, if they're going to remain a no vote for ACC expansion, then North Carolina State's going to remain a no vote. Florida State, Clemson are going to be no votes, correct? But then we also said in that episode, UNC's statement doesn't make any sense last night. If they were assured that there were going to be four no votes, right? There was no reason for the Board of Trustees to say we are strongly opposed to North Carolina they were strongly opposed for expansion. There was no reason for North Carolina to say that if they knew they had the votes going their way. Holy smokes. SMU. Let's start there. Congratulations. You climbed over the wall. You're in a Power 5 conference. You made it. Now, you're not going to get paid any media revenue for 7 years, but you weren't really getting any media. You were getting some, about $7 million a year. So you're out $50 million. You're going to be out a lot compared to your ACC university, your foes, your competition, your conference play. It's going to be tough, but you had people willing to pay for it. You went for it, and you climbed over the wall. We'll see what the ACC looks like 6 to 7 years from now. But SMU got the job done. California and Stanford. I don't know. It's going to be difficult. Look, you're going to be traveling. California, Berkeley, you're talking about the travel situation for UCLA. You're doing a calimony tax on UCLA. And now you got the California, Berkeley student athletes going all the way to the eastern part of the country. And you're not getting paid like UCLA and USC. But the decision was made. You wanted to stay in athletic conference with institutions that somewhat match. Some have some commonality to the institutions of Berkeley, California, and Stanford. Stanford, congratulations. I guess, you know what? You remain Autonomy 4. You remain in Autonomy 4 conference. Breaking news. There is going to be a fallout. Now, we've also been stating here for the last 10 days at Peek Around the Corner. McMurphy is saying that North Carolina State is the one who flipped. Holy smokes. Wow. Aww. Wow. Well, look, here's the thing. We've been saying here in about the last 10 days at Peek Around the Corner, for those who've watched our live shows, we said it looked like it was going to happen. And the whole part about negotiations between Florida State, North Carolina, Clemson, and possibly Miami, Florida, this was not about clearing the hurdles for the exit ramp, for them to get out easier. It was all about the money. An extra few $1 million per school per year. There was no big coordinated effort, no negotiations with regards to Florida State and the ACC in trying to get out early. Those were never part of the talks. Also, the ACC grant of rights is not going to change. The composition clause has nothing to do with this. The ACC grant of rights stays until 2036. The ACC owns the individual ACC schools' media rights. At least a whole lot of people are going to learn a whole lot of things. Now, I'm not trying to pick on anybody or anything. Florida State is serious about leaving the conference. They're going to try to either win the case in court to get out of the ACC grant of rights, or come up somehow, some way, get the ACC at the table for a settlement, a financial settlement. But the whole idea of Clemson and Florida State announcing they're going to leave, and somehow that changes the grant of rights composition clause, somehow the whole dissolution theory that PATC has never, we've always been told that's not going to happen. Now, I think the PATC community should put that aside. When you're adding 3 members, the dissolution theory, I think you can finally push that aside. Again, as we've been reporting for the last 10 days here at Peek Around the Corner, as we learned, as we were told by 3 different people, the negotiations for the ACC expansion had nothing to do positively, negatively on Florida State's exit ramp out of the conference. It does not affect Florida State. Let me be perfectly clear, because other people like to muddy the waters. We've been saying this for quite a while now. What has happened today does not affect Florida State, does not affect Clemson, does not affect North Carolina, does not affect a school's ability to leave or not leave the conference. The hurdles are already there. You're going to have to come up, you're going to have to get ACC at the table for a financial settlement to get this done. Or you're going to have to win it in the courts. Composition clause and all this stuff, it's not. There is a composition clause if Notre Dame decides to enter into the conference, then the ACC can renegotiate with the ESPN. That's what the composition clause is all about. The ACC gore does not get ripped up, put away, or changed just because you're adding schools, or just because Florida State and Clemson announces that they're leaving, if they do announce that they're leaving. If the ACC goes below 15 members, and they're not going to go below 15 members, but if they would go below 15 members, that would have triggered ESPN's ability to renegotiate the TV contract. But they were never going to go under 15 members. There was always going to be time for ACC to add schools. But in this case, as Brett McMurphy reported, now the ACC can get who, if they act now, they have the ability to bring in 2 Power 5 ACC, Stanford and California, the best schools in the country. They could do it now because they were available now. Now if Florida State and Clemson somehow get out of the conference by a settlement, or they have a magic potion to get out to win the grant of rights in court, now ACC doesn't have to scramble. They're going to have time to fill in more programs. And now, Notre Dame. Notre Dame. The optics are brutal. Notre Dame, once again, optically, they called the shots. They wanted California Stanford. They got California Stanford. A non-full member of the ACC conference went out, pushed for, and got California Stanford into the conference, while Florida State, while Clemson, while North Carolina did not want to do it. The optics are absolutely brutal. Now, perception oftentimes becomes reality. And we got it's not a whole new reality, but I think it's eye-opening. This is what Notre Dame wanted, they got it. This is not what Florida State wanted, they lost on the votes. Trouble times ahead for the ACC. However, they're not going down like the Pac-12 is going to go down, right? They backfield, they got not even backfield, but they got in front of the backfield by adding a Stanford and a California and an SMU. Let's get to your comments. Let's get to your phone calls as early as possible. Unbelievable. Not unbelievable. It was believable. As we started reporting about 10 days ago, holy smokes, Jeff Olson, great win last night. I don't know if it was a great win. Coffee with Greg. Howdy, y'all. Holy smokes. Holy smokes. What the heck is going on? How quickly things have changed. The Pac finally sinks to the Pacific. Black rain. My brother from another mother. Look, Oregon State, Washington State, ACC, AAC, or the Mountain West. Take your pick. SMU, Way to go. Way our row the boat, Marcus Wood. These damn kids drinking pop instead of coffee. I'm not a kid. I can't drink. I can drink coffee. But only a little bit every single day. Nebraska media, thank goodness we won't be relegated to the dregs of the Big Ten West. North Carolina State must have flipped. It sounds like they did flip. It sounds like they got to Florida State. Rick Forster, North Carolina, Florida State, Clemson are gone. Once they can get a settlement from the ACC, or if there is something there that they can break the grant of rights, like we've been speculating only. Maybe there was some sort of communication between Florida State and the ACC when they signed that last extension of the grant of rights. Remember, Florida State was the last school to sign it. Swafford had to go down to Tallahassee, twist the arm of Florida State to sign the extended grant of rights. Maybe there's some communication where Florida State doesn't believe they received enough consideration in signing the grant of rights, the extended grant of rights, or, ladies and gentlemen, or this is going to come down to Florida State, as the Florida State Money Purchase told us, our source at Florida State has told us all the way back to December 26, 2022, this might come down to Florida State saying to the ACC, what is your number? Besides the $120 million exit fee, what is your number? Is it $400 million? Is it $500 million? Is it $600 million? Give us your number. We'll give you our number that we think we need to pay you to get out of the grant of rights, and let's settle this thing up. Remember this. Remember this, ladies and gentlemen. Remember this. Remember this. Now Florida State. Now North Carolina. Now Clemson. I want you to listen to this. Those three institutions can now go to Jim Phillips, the ACC commissioner, all three of them, and they can tell him this. You need to give us a pathway for us to pay ourselves out of the conference. What is the number? Because you just brought in ACC full member number 17, SMU. They bought their way in to the conference. They're not taking any Tier 1, Tier 2, ACC network media revenue for 7 years. SMU has bought themselves in. Therefore, you got to give us a pathway to give us the opportunity to pay ourselves out. In some ways, the precedent has been set. We're not talking SMU not taking the full amount of the ACC network money. That's like a Rutgers. That's like a Maryland. That's like West Virginia taking a partial share when they joined the Big 12. That's like TCU taking a partial share when they joined the Big 12. No, SMU is taking nada. They're taking a little bit of the NCAA tournament credit money, stuff like that, bowl tie-in. But they're not taking any of the Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 ACC network money. SMU's buying their way in, and I'm not ripping on SMU. I congratulated them. They jumped over the wall. What I'm saying is SMU is paying their way in. Now Florida State, North Carolina, and Clemson can add that to the argument. You brought in 17th member. They paid their way in. Give us the opportunity to pay our way out. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Movie Time Blues, not until 2037. The grant of rights still has teeth. Delaney wanted UNC in the Big Ten. No question about that. Stephen Vitt, well, this certainly means the Pac-12 is done. You can't rebuild the Pac with an Oregon State and Washington State. Pac-12, rest in peace. Yes, the grant of rights definitely still has teeth. Ted, good morning, Greg. Glad to hear you still have a voice. I barely had a voice. If you're new to the show, by the way, if you're new to the show, please subscribe to this ever-growing channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. I'm going to get to some, let's get to the news here. Let's get to the news. Let me get on it. I am checking X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. Looking for... see. Again, people don't quite understand what just happened. Dan Wolken, the fact that the TV networks would pay various conferences to add 10 of the 12 schools in the Pac-12, but the Pac-12 couldn't get a TV deal that kept them in the same league is one of the biggest failures by sports executive we have ever seen. False. Absolutely false. Again, there are college football reporters that still don't get it. The networks did not want, and we told Mr. Dan Wolken and everybody else that would listen over a year ago, the networks were rejecting a one-region conference in the Pacific Coast. They were not rejecting the institutions. They were rejecting the one-region conference. It did not bring enough value. These schools are more valuable playing in a national conference in the Big 10, in the Big 12 at a certain level, and even the ACC. Again, Mr. Wolken and people out there, you still don't get it, and I don't know what it would take for them to finally get it. Again, maybe I shouldn't have went to Twitter. People still aren't getting this. Okay. Let's get back. I'm sorry. Let's get back to... okay. Let's get to some... Brett McMurphy, ACC will add Stanford, Cal, SMU in 2024. Sources told Action Network. The league's presidents got the required 12 of the 15 votes to expand the ACC's football membership to 17 schools. SMU will not receive any media rights revenue for the first 7 years, while Stanford and California will receive reduced shares, sources said. One reason ACC added Stanford, Cal, and SMU to the ESPN media rights deal, it allows the ACC, allows ESPN to renegotiate if the league drops below 15 members. We talked about that earlier. Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, all who voted against expansion. ACC wanted to get P5 schools, now opposed to G5 schools, later to maintain required membership. Again, this whole negotiations between the schools that wanted to expand and the schools that did not want to had nothing to do with the exit ramp. It had to do with the schools wanting to make sure that they never drop below 15 by adding some Power 5 schools right now because they were available. But Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, they were not going to get any of the stuff removed from their exit ramp. ACC wasn't going to play. There were no talks about that. There was no big, coordinated, huge story going on. It was all about dollars and cents in security for most of those ACC schools. But for Clemson, North Carolina, Florida State, they were not going to get, they're not affected, ladies and gentlemen. They are not affected. When it comes to the exit ramp, getting out of the ACC, negatively or positively, this has nothing to do with Florida State's ability to get out of the conference. They were not going to do the dissolution. They had made their own decision. It wasn't going to work for whatever reason. It does not change. This does not change the ACC grant of rights. It changes absolutely nothing. Florida State Board of Trustees, Peter Collins, Richard McCullough, the president, the alumni, the boosters, it's still all engines are a go. This changes nothing. Like we started reporting to you about 10 days ago. Does everybody understand? And here's just an example right here. A question was asked to Larry Williams, Clemson's beat writer. Do you think Clemson, Florida State, and North Carolina negotiated their buyout in order for the ACC to get the votes to pass? Larry Williams, Tiger Illustrated. Wait a second. He did answer that question. This is a common theory question, but there's nothing to that. As we've been reporting over the last 10 days, peek around the corner, there was just nothing to that. This has nothing to do with Clemson's ability to get out of the conference. It did not hurt it. It did not help it. It was separate from it. As difficult that is for people to get their arms around, we were giving you a peek around the corner here, peek around the corner, that whole theory question had nothing to do with the reality of the negotiations. This was pretty much a money grab, a few $1 million a year for of the ACC schools, a money grab, nothing wrong with that, and a little bit of proactive security and insurance policy. Although the conference was never going to drop below 15. But they got to choose a couple of additions, Power 5, California, Stanford, and the SMU component greased the skids. It absolutely greased the skids. Again, if you're new to the channel, subscribe. Please smash that like button. If you want your comment to pop up, we do a deep dive, hit the $, donate to this independent channel, and I'll get to your comment as soon as possible. We're gonna open up the phone lines here. We're gonna open up the phone lines early and often. 763-260-1333. Breaking news. Breaking news. Stanford, California, SMU have received their official invitations from the ACC to join the conference. Ladies and gentlemen, to join the conference. The phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. Good morning to you all. From your host to you all, good morning. Let's get it on. Let's get it on. So 10 of the 12 had P5 landing spots. Very interesting. California got a break. SMU got their wish. Stanford is still an arrogant circus. Market text, Berkeley and SMU are the only winners. Berkeley probably gets Notre Dame on the schedule annually and doesn't get regulated to the Mountain West Conference or Pete Thamel, ESPN. Pete Thamel, ESPN. Atlantic Coast Conference is expanding. The presidents and the chancellors met this morning, adding 3 schools, Stanford, California, SMU. It will bring the league to 18 members, 17 members in the football full-time. North Carolina State Chancellor Randy Woodson was the person who flipped their vote. The focus on Woodson intensified on Thursday night, last night, when the members of the University of North Carolina Board of Trustees issued a statement to voice their objection to the additions. The move was perceived around the ACC as a political statement to be sure that the University of North Carolina Chancellor Kevin Guselwich didn't flip his vote. So the North Carolina Board of Trustees coming out in front of Kevin Guselwich and basically saying, we strongly disagree with the ACC expansion. Cloak and dagger within the University of North Carolina Chapel Hill's leadership between the Board of Trustees and the president. They didn't trust the president not to flip his vote. The Board of Trustees came out last night. Wow. Holy smokes. Wow. SMU goes 7 years with no revenue is insane. They're going to get some revenue. They're not going to get the Tier 1, Tier 2 ACC network. They're going to get some other stuff. But yeah, it's... Look, they jumped over the wall. They could have stayed in the AAC and received $7 million a year in media revenue. So they're losing $49 million of that. They're going to be losing some exit fee. Overall, though, SMU should come out ahead as long as the ACC somewhat stays intact after 2031, right? After 2031, if the ACC remains somewhat of an autonomy conference, they're going to lose some of their biggest members. But if they stay intact, unlike the Pac-12, SMU is going to come out ahead. Juan Carlos, that was pretty bold of UNC. When was the last time a conference member institution made their reservation disagreement with inviting new members so public? I do not remember a time that happened. That's a very good point, Juan Carlos. Very good point. I'm checking the phone here. My phone is blowing up, as you can imagine. Any chance this means Notre Dame drops the South Carolina game? South Carolina game. The USC Southern California game. I don't know. That's a good question. Because this helps Notre Dame's ability to make sure they get a road trip out to the West Coast every year. The question is, do they want 2 road trips out west every year? Very, very, very good question. Very good question. Ryan Brooks, what did North Carolina get for flipping? North Carolina State, what did they get? I don't know. I don't think they got anything. The pressure at the presidential level to include California and Stanford, to be able to rub elbows with those 2 institutions as a president of a university, North Carolina State, the pressure was pretty big. Baylor's Patrick says SMU has a very, very large war chest. They do. Now, that war chest hasn't been winning any AAC championships in football, in basketball. So, we'll see what happens when they go to the ACC. They're going to be at quite a disadvantage. But again, they got over the wall. And they're probably the last G5 to get over the wall. We shall see. Realignment never sleeps. S. Reed, SMU will be lucky to win 3 games. Good question. Is California Stanford really going to sign the grant of rights to 2036 and close off all hope of the Big Ten? It was not a bluff. Big Ten was, and we reported this at Peek Around the Corner. The networks did not value, they got very low valuations coming back to the Big Ten presidents on California and Stanford. The additions. If without Notre Dame, there was nothing to grease the skids for Stanford, so they weren't coming aboard. And there are other people out there reporting that California Stanford already had assurances that the current Big Ten media companies were ready to pay them into the conference. Certain other channels were reporting this over and over and over again. There was erroneous reporting. There was no truth to that whatsoever. California State, this was all about Oregon and Washington here in the last couple of months. 5 months from now, 5 years from now, Washington and Oregon were going to get to the Big Ten. Stanford probably needed a Notre Dame in California. If you've been following this channel for the last year, there was never any steam with California and the Big Ten. We could never report to you any steam whatsoever. $17 is such an awkward number. Yeah, it is. It is. Big Ten got their West Coast schools. Now their attention goes to the East and the South. Hagen's got it absolutely correct. Kirkpatrick says the Big Ten did the right thing. The voice is going. Congrats, Greg. Great finish to the game last night. That was crazy. That was a crazy, crazy finish. I'm just going to take a moment to talk about it. I think Nebraska's going to be fine. That was a more physical defense that Nebraska has displayed. The most physical defense in the last 6-7 years. Game 1 of Matt Rule. The 3-3-5 defense confused Minnesota all game long, but it wasn't just the confusion. Nebraska was there to make the hit. Even when Kaliak Manis made a good throw, Minnesota receiver caught the ball, Nebraska was right there. Very impressive by Nebraska. Special teams favor Nebraska. But again, Jeff Sims, interception, just like he did at Georgia Tech. And Minnesota got very fortunate, squeezed out a victory. Minnesota has a lot of questions, and I don't think they're going to have all the answers. I really don't. They can't play the bully ball. They can't play the bully run offense they've been doing for years. They know that. It's going to be, they're going to have to win games differently this year. Ethan Kaliak Manis, he's a young kid. This is his first year as a starter. And he's already way more developed than Jeff Sims is ever going to get to. So there are some positives for the Gophers. They got a very good defensive line. But in Tyler Nubin, the great safety, he's an All-American this year. He's going to be a first-round draft pick. Gophers have got some things going for them, but you can clearly see their weaknesses, and it's going to be a struggle every single week, even next week against Eastern Michigan. Minnesota's going to have to win a lot of close games. They're going to have to get fortunate. They're going to have to get away from the injury. Cody Lindenberg, Gophers' #1 defensive linebacker, by far a monster. He was out last night. We didn't even know he was injured until 2 hours before the game. That was a killer. That hurt. But Matt Rule has Nebraska. Look, they don't have a wide receiver room. Castaneda got injured last night. Their wide receiver room is so thin. They don't have a quarterback that could win in the Big Ten. They're not ready yet. And no one should expect Nebraska to be ready yet. But they played hard, and I think they're going to be fine. I think Nebraska Cornhuskers are going to be very, very happy with Matt Rule. Give it another couple years. Give it more than one game. That's all I can say. They're ahead of schedule, Nebraska. Patrick says 2036, Florida, Clemson, and North Carolina are gone. Matt Rule has always brought in a great defense. Any chance the Big 12 takes the Bees and the Cougs? I don't think so. Everybody is looking east. Big 10 east. Big 12 east. Even the SEC probably going east up to Virginia, North Carolina. Everybody's waiting for the ACC to implode a year from now, 3 years from now, or in 2036. Is Big Ten adding a new media partner? I don't think so. I don't think you can totally rule it out. But I don't think so. We shall see. I'm not going to completely rule it out. Robert Perez, Mr. Fresno State, I don't think so. Big 12 wants to eat at the ACC table if the opportunity arises. So they're keeping their slots open for the ACC implosion. I do not think so. Now, the question is, does Fresno State and the Mountain West schools bring on a Washington State and Oregon State? Or the long shot possibility that Oregon State and Washington State somehow can rebuild the Pac-12? I don't think so. I think it was going to be an incredible long shot, even if Stanford, California did not get the ACC invite. Now I think it becomes completely impossible for the rebuild of the Pac-12. So the next question is, where does Washington State and Oregon State go? And if they don't go to the ACC, what does the AAC do now? What does Oresco do? SMU is out. Do you go with an odd number, or do you bring Army in? Does Army join the AAC to join with Navy? Let me know in the comments, yes or no. The phone lines are open, 763-260-1333, 763-260-1333. Breaking news, the ACC is expanding with California, with the Stanford, with SMU. Give me a call. I'm going to check the news wire here. Just checking to see if there's any other information. Sorry for my voice. Let's check out 247's reporting. I'm just going to go through it real quick. SMU foregoing 7 years of television revenue. Florida State, Clemson, and North Carolina remained no votes.
Call from
Kansas State fan.
Kansas State fan, the floor is yours. Thanks for calling.
This is way too early for alignment news. I just got up out of my bed. I'm just completely out of it after watching football games last night. Shout out to your beloved Golden Gophers. They beat up on Nebraska. As a K-State fan, we behind Kansas, Nebraska's our second most hated team. On a chain.
I would not call that beating up on Nebraska, though. I would not call that result beating them up, but we usually do, but not last night.
Your defense beat up on Nebraska. That was sort of classic Big Ten West football, and no offense to you guys, but my goodness, the ACC. Nothing yells Atlantic Coast more than Stanford and SMU. My gosh, this was clearly a move just based on insurance, because you saw the cost that SMU and Stanford were willing to kind of give up, like that they were not going to pay for the media rights fees. They were not. They were able to pay themselves and the media rights fee, something like that. But it's going to be very interesting, especially with what's happening with travel, because you want to talk about the 4 Big Ten schools going west. Well, they're making around 50 to 60 million right now. They will be making 50 to 60 million in the Big Ten. So the travel for their sake, it's kind of worse, but they'll have the money to back it up. But but Stanford and Cal, they're only going to be making money on the cheap, and they're going to be bringing schools to all the way out to Wake Forest and Boston College and Syracuse. It's crazy times. It is very crazy times.
Yeah, their travel is going to be worse than USC's, UCLA's, Oregon, and Washington, right? So it's crazy, and they're not going to get the money, obviously, right? Like Oregon and Washington and USC, UCLA. It's crazy. California, Berkeley, all that talk about student athletes protections, not wanting UCLA to go across the country over and over and over again, and now look what they just did. Yeah, it's something else.
The irony speaks for itself. This is just crazy. My heart goes out to Oregon State. Oregon State did nothing wrong in this situation. None of their people in the administration did anything wrong. It's not like they came out saying wrong messages like Kirk Schultz did at Washington State, which is part of the reason why I have a little bit more bitter feelings towards Washington State in this situation. But those two schools are kind of left in the dust. And a few years ago, when Oklahoma and Texas left, I thought that was going to be kind of the same position where K-State or Iowa State was going to be. Like, they were going to be kind of left for dead, bound to join either the Mountain West or the AAC. But it's hard. It's sad times for those two programs. Hopefully they're able to finish off with a bang in the Pac-12, and they'll get a lot more opportunities now with the playoff, because the Mountain West it's not like it's the Pac-12. It's not going to be a complete gauntlet. So maybe you have a chance to typically rise to the occasion as one of a better group of 5 teams. But then again, you're not going to make enough money to compete on a national scale. So
I'm sitting here thinking. Okay, so Stanford, right? They have all these great Olympic teams, sponsored teams, right? What are they doing with those teams now? They're going across the country constantly to the East Coast. Mm-hmm. Just think about that. Go ahead. The more you think about it, Man, oh man. Go ahead.
And I thought West Virginia joining the Big 12 would have been crazy back in 2011.
Oh, yeah.
Which was at the time, but I mean this is insane beyond other comparing any possibilities.
Yeah.
I thought honestly the ACC was kind of we're going to kind of remain holding on their vote, but I think maybe one of the schools, and I'm not reading too much into MacGyver or that over West Virginia account, but he said North Carolina State they changed their vote, which so I don't know. I'll also look into that a little bit more, but
North Carolina State was the school that flipped their vote. Yep.
It was North Carolina State. Okay,
yes, sir.
So,
yep.
All right. So what happens now? So for Mountain West, this is a big opportunity for them. They have an opportunity to go get Oregon State and Washington State.
Yes,
I mean,
sir.
Because there's no way the Pac-12 can be rebuilt. So,
I don't think so. I don't think so. Yeah.
So for Mountain West, they're in a really good position right now. For the AC, for the American or AAC, you did mention Army, but has there been any? There's been some of the circles I've been around. There's been a little bit of heat with Air Force possibly joining the AAC because of its military ties with Navy as well. Have you?
I haven't heard that. The problem with that is if Air Force wants to join the AAC by next year, they would have to pay a $34 million exit fee, right? Or if they wanted to join 2 years from now, it's a $17 million exit fee. Plus the Mountain West media contract comes up in a couple of years, where the ACC goes a few more years after that. I don't think Air Force would come out ahead, even though the AAC pays a little bit more yearly. I don't think that's some people would call that a lateral move, Mountain West to the AAC. Some people would call that maybe half a step up. Either way, however you want to call it, I don't think Air Force comes out ahead on that type of move.
Okay.
But an Army's different, so that's why I think maybe Army would be the pick. But again, we shall see.
Well, Army is independent as well, so they're able to kind of transition into it a lot more easy. Similar to what we saw with BYU, since they were independent and they didn't have to pay the massive exit fee out of the conference like Cincinnati, Houston, UCF did, because BYU was independent in football, which was really what was cashing in all the checks. Gosh, it's just a crazy time. But Greg, I'll let you back on your calls. You're doing a lot of great content. I enjoyed the live show last night, and
beautiful.
Hope to see you around. Go Cats.
Go. Thank you. Go Cats. Thank you, man. Great call. Holy smokes. Ryan Brooks says, talk about a program with deep pockets. The United States Air Force Academy can literally have money printed.
Call from
Ryan Thomas.
Ryan Thomas, the floor is yours. What do you got to say, good man?
Well, first of all, Greg, I'm glad you're still alive after that. The last 2 minutes of that Minnesota-Nebraska game.
It was touch and go. It was touch and go. Now, I'm not even talking about the game. I'm talking about my health. It was touch and go.
Well, I'm glad to see your Gophers pick up the win. The last 2 minutes, the last minute after that interception, the Greek rifle, he made some, good smart passes, getting the ball down the field, and it was a lot better than he'd been playing throughout the game. So it was nice to kind of see the Gophers pull it together and get that walk-off win on the field goal. So I mean, congratulations to you, and hopefully the Gophers that the secondary. I know it's thin, but that Gopher secondary looks pretty good, Greg.
Yeah. Well, Tyler Newbin's pretty much
He's a beast.
He's going to be an All-American. He would have been a second rounder in the NFL draft this last year, but now before the game they were all saying that he was going to be a first rounder.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, he's something special. They got some special guys back there, but they got so many guys who played for the very first time last night. And Jeff Sims was beating them right around the corner, running the ball.
Yep.
It's too bad the guy can't throw the ball though, but.
Yeah, well, Nebraska might be in for another long year, so we'll see. But as far as the ACC and also the UNC statement the night before, it kind of came to me that, and I've been talking with Immaculate about this kind of offline, that I wouldn't be surprised to see some public statements from a few of the no votes, just so they can be on record legally saying, hey, we thought this was a bad idea. I mean, because they're gonna try to use anything to get out eventually, and I mean, so I think UNC and probably FSU and Clemson kind of have all made statements to the effect of this, just in essence to basically have some sort of thing saying we thought this was a bad idea in case it goes pear-shaped later on.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that's probably what it is. I mean. Like you said, the path out is not the dissolution. The path out is going to be something involving the value of the ACC network, and so that's where that really comes in, and so that's going to be interesting. The one thing I kind of, I understand SMU doing what it needed to do, and I don't blame SMU doing what it needed to do. I thought SMU, This is their kind of last chance to get over the fence, and anyone in their position would do it. But I also think it's a jerk move on the ACC part. However, basically no revenue for 7 years, and in the fact in 7 years, as we know, that's when the Big 12, SEC, and Big 10 all come up again, and the media deals. Who knows what they could be? But it could be easy for a bunch of teams to bail the ACC in the early 2030s. And then what is SMU left with? They're left with a conference that would be basically the same as the AAC, and they got no money for 7 years. I understand having donors willing to pay it up, and I don't blame SMU for the decision, but I think that the ACC is really using them, and it's like a Ponzi scheme, and I think it's a little jerkish, but that's just my opinion. Again, I understand why SMU is doing it, and they have to do it, and I agree with their decision. But at the same time, I think the ACC, sure, just because you have the leverage and the advantage to do it, doesn't necessarily mean it's healthy, because those donors, we've talked about doubled, and I hate to tell people this, but J.R. Ewing is not real, and he's not making contributions to SMU's program. Yeah, they've got donors, but it's going to cost, when you look at P5 school budgets, you're talking about athletic budgets, anywhere between 90 to 110 million on average. And, if you're not pulling any media money and you're not pulling any other distributions from bowls or anything like that, and you're taking nothing.
Here's the thing. The one thing I do not know, and I apologize, Ryan, for cutting in.
Go ahead.
I don't have the answer to this question. It's too early in the story. We're in the fog of war on this story.
Yeah.
The one thing I do not know is the playoff distribution money. We know that SMU is not going to get the Tier 1, Tier 2 ACC network money. But are they going to get the playoff distribution money? And that is a big question that we need answered, because the difference between a G5, the cut they're going to get, and a Power 5 team, the cut they're going to get, could be big enough to where this deal pays for itself for SMU. 7 years remaining where they are versus 7 years going to the ACC without the Tier 1, Tier 2 ACC network money? That is the piece we do not know.
Yeah, I mean, and I agree, but my hunch is, if you remember when the Pac-12 was talking about expansion and trying to use playoff money from the additions to, kind of make Oregon and Washington happy. I mean, I think the same scenario may be at play with FSU and Florida, FSU and Clemson. But, I mean, I don't know. We'll find out. But I still think that, I don't think it's a good faith move on the ACC's part. But that I understand SMU doing what it needs to do, but and it has to do that. But I still think it's kind of, just because you can do something and you have the advantage doesn't necessarily mean that you should. But I mean, that's another story. I mean, pardon me for having business ethics. But as far as the Mountain West goes, I think this move pretty much cements the fact that Oregon State and Washington State are going there. The AAC makes no sense whatsoever. Washington State is basically, their budget situation is awful right now, and Oregon has a heavy debt load on that stadium, and I just don't think they can afford to add $10 million in travel costs going back and forth to the East Coast with the AAC. I just don't think that's happening, and the AAC, they've got a lot of upside potential with some of the brands like UT San Antonio and others like that. But right now, it's not the same AAC. It's not, the Mountain West, and people can argue with me. Right now, the Mountain West, top to bottom, is better than the AAC. And, I think that's just going to be, I think Oregon State and Washington State are headed there. I really don't think you can rebuild the Pac-12. Now, you might see the Pac-12 merge into the Mountain West and, change the name, Navarre takes over or something like that. I mean, that's probably what you'll see. But I just don't, at this time, I just don't see it happening for the AAC, and I think that, they're kind of in a situation where, bless Mike Resco's heart for trying to, keep that conference going after several hits, but I mean, I just think at this point, Rice isn't moving the needle for you, and honestly, if you're the Mountain West, you probably ought to just go out and invite Tulane and Tulsa maybe, I don't know. That could be, but Temple's not moving the needle for you. Rice isn't moving the needle for you. I mean, Charlotte has potential. UT San Antonio has potential, but right now, they're still in the infancy. UAB has potential, but it's still in its infancy. So I sort of just kind of see this as, I think at this point there won't be any, there won't be any Pac-12 brand. I think who knows what happens with the bowl ties and everything, and whether or not there's a legal merger and they hang on to those, or whether or not the Big Ten, Big 12, and SEC pick up the remaining bowl ties. Like does the Big 12 pick up the Holiday and Vegas bowl tie or something like that? So. That's interesting, but that's all I got this morning, Greg. Thanks for keeping our heads on the swivel. I got whiplash here, but I'm glad to see your Gophers get the win last night, and hopefully you guys have a good season. Have a great day as well.
Got it. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Great call by Ron Thomas. Mark Ruckert, thank you so much for the super chat. Your continued generosity to the show. Thank you so very much. Who gets the money from the Pac-12 network equipment when they sell that off? I don't know. Maybe Washington State, Oregon State. Maybe they have some legal claims to this. Everybody else left them. That's a great question. I do not have the answer. But you still have some sort of... all those schools are still going to have to owe Comcast that money that they owe, $70 million plus. You still have legal obligations, right? And maybe some of that legal obligations of the network to the schools, maybe Washington State, Oregon State clean up. I don't know. But that is a great question. Mark, another question that needs to be answered. Unfortunately, I do not have the answer of this morning. Thank you so much once again for your super chat. I very, very much appreciate it. People are just coming in the morning live show. This was an emergency live show. ACC breaking news are expanding with California. Yes, way out west. California, Stanford, and SMU. SMU finally jumps over the Power 5 wall. They joined the Power 5 conference. California and Stanford remain an Autonomy 4 conference. They remain an Autonomy 4 conference. And I'm going to get back to the playoff. I'm going to get back to the playoff distribution here. We don't know what the playoff distribution is going to be in the expanded playoffs. We believed here at Peek Around the Corner that it was going to be 80% of the total pot, be it $2 billion. We believed that the total 80% would be distributed evenly to every Power 5 program, Power 4 program. I got to start talking Autonomy 4. That the $2 billion pot, or whatever it's going to be, that 80% of that revenue is going to go to the Autonomy 4 schools, evenly divided by the school. And then you get more per performance. But it isn't going to be evenly distributed per conference, per school. So therefore, and then 20% of that $2 billion is going to be distributed among the G5 schools. That's what we believe is going to happen. We thought it was official. It's not official. Nothing is official right now because they're all talking once again, the 10 FBS commissioners and Notre Dame's athletic director, Jack Swarber. The money gap is so much money getting poured into this playoff expansion. The G5 conferences, the G5 schools are going to make, if we are correct in our beliefs, they're going to make a lot of money. They're going to make a lot of money. And it's going to help their athletic department. It's going to keep it going. It's going to keep running. They're going to be able to pay the bills to the Power 5 conferences. At one point, when we had the chalkboard up here, when we had the live show talking about the playoff distribution, I think it came out to something like $24 million a school. Playoff distribution alone. The gap between the Power 5, Power 4, the gap between the Autonomy 4 distribution of playoff to the G5 might be so large that it already pays for SMU's doing this, going over the wall. And it was such an incentive. It was such an incentive for Stanford and California to remain in Autonomy 4 instead of going to a G5 because the dramatic gulf between the distribution money, the playoff distribution money, that alone was enough incentive for Stanford and California to throw a Hail Mary pass to try to get into the ACC. So I understand what's in it for SMU. I understand why Stanford and California went to this drastic measure. The question is, what's in it for the ACC? What's in it for them is a few $1 million per year more, even after travel costs, a couple $1 million per more, and an insurance policy. When Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, and possibly a couple other schools leave the conference, now they have a backfield already established with a couple Power 4 schools in Stanford and California. And there was a question in the comments section. If a Florida State, and a Florida State, a Clemson, North Carolina, if they go to the ACC and say, give us the number. Give us the number. What is it? $120 million exit fee. And let's say $380 million to get out of the Gore. That's a low number. But I'm bad at math, so let's just make it a clean $500 million per school. $120 million exit fee, $380 million Gore, $500 million, $500 million, $500 million. That's $1.5 billion. $1.5 billion. This is just an example. We're just speculating. Is $1.5 billion enough distributed among the 17, or maybe Notre Dame gets a part of it? Is that enough for the ACC to say, okay, we'll let you three go as long as we keep our contract to the ESPN to 2036, as long as we remain an autonomy for conference? We get the $1.5 billion, that'll boost us up. We're definitely number 3 conference when it comes to revenue. We blow by the Big 12 if we're chopping up that $1.5 billion among us schools. Something to think about. Are we closer to a settlement happening in 2025, 2026 with Florida State, with North Carolina, with a Clemson? And again, I'm going to repeat this. We started reporting this 10 days ago at Peek Around the Corner. For those who have been watching us, this negotiations in regards to ACC expansion did not help or hurt Florida State's ability to get out of the conference. It wasn't about that. It wasn't about the exit ramp. Florida State's hurdle to get out of the grant of rights is already a mountain. They have to somehow win it in the courts or somehow get a settlement with the ACC, which is good enough for all parties to do. That's already a high enough mountain. This wasn't going to alleviate any of those big hurdles. It wasn't going to hurt. Adding 3 schools was not going to hurt because the dissolution theory was never quite real. And we've been saying that for months. We've been saying that for over a year. The composition clause and all this other stuff that's been thrown out there, none of that is really what is going on right now. Internally, Florida State, we believe, is going to ask for a number for the ACC. What is it going to cost us to get out of the grant of rights? What are you willing to settle on? And if the ACC says there's no number, then Florida State might go to the courts with the ACC. That's where we're thinking. It's now a race for third. There's a true Power 4 now. You do not understand the grant of rights. Wendy, let me know in the comment section or with the phone call. Let me know what I got wrong with the grant of rights. The grant of rights is owned by the ACC and it has teeth. It has teeth. Let me know what I got all wrong once again. ACC does not want to renegotiate the ESPN contract. They don't. Now, the number was never going to drop below 15, though. It's just in this case, the ACC was proactive to where they could grab a couple schools and an SMU that could grease the skids. They could pick the schools now instead of waiting a couple years from now if Florida State and North Carolina and Clemson finds a way out of the conference. I got my Diet Coke, CFB Plus. I'm okay. For now. ACC added Rice-A-Roni as a corporate sponsor yet? A race for third. What exactly did the ACC add? They added a California and a Stanford. Doesn't quite help their valuation out. SMU doesn't either. But all those schools are going to receive a couple more $1 million a year for the next 7 years. The ACC network now going to be able to push out a higher rate in Northern California, in the state of Texas. We'll see how many people buy that ACC network. SMU fan base isn't all that big. They don't have market penetration in Dallas and Fort Worth too much. But again, they do have somewhat of a fan base. Do they buy up? Does that help ACC network subscriptions? We'll see what Northern California does with the ACC network. One of the reasons why California and Stanford came in at such a low valuation for the Big Ten network, for Fox Sports, and we reported this for over the last year, there was a belief in Northern California that simply the subscriptions would not be bought. The demographics, the fan base, California, Berkeley, Stanford, they would not go out and buy the Big Ten network subscriptions. We'll see what happens with the ACC. Can they sell it? ESPN, can they sell it? Phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. The phone lines are open. Breaking news. I'm going to check if there's any more news coming out. It's a good point. Good point. Now that we got resolution, in regards to realignment, for the most part, now the College Football Playoff Committee, now we can get to some decisions. I think the Pac-12 is done. Autonomy 4, G5. Now we're down to 9 FBS conferences. So I think the chances of us going to a 6+6 to a 5+7 has been enhanced greatly. I think now for 2024 and 25, we're going to be going to 5 conference champions, automatic bids, 7 at large.
Call from
Anthony Manzano.
Anthony, thanks for calling. The floor is yours, good sir.
Hey, Greg, how are you today?
Doing good. Voice is going, but I'm doing good.
Greg, I have a question, actually. This applies to what we're talking about. Why do you think Miami voted yes for these these 3 teams to join the conference instead of trying to follow, like, right away follow Florida State, Clemson, and North Carolina and vote no for these teams to join the conference and stuff like that? Is it because the Big Ten or the SEC didn't want them?
No, I don't think it. I don't think it's that. And I want to make something perfectly clear. This vote, yes or no, does not make it more difficult for Miami to lead the conference if they choose to do so. It wasn't going to help or hurt. Our reporting has been different than pretty much everybody else, especially the last 10 days. We were told by 3 different sources. We've been reporting this for 10 days. Whatever was going to happen here wasn't going to hurt Florida State's pathway out of the conference. So it wasn't going to hurt Miami, Florida out of the conference. This was a money grab. Miami, Florida is going to get a couple $1 million more a year, right? It's not costing them anything. That's after travel. And it does not affect their ability to leave the conference. There wasn't going to be a dissolution vote of 8 votes. That was never reality. We've been talking about that for a year. That wasn't the way this thing was going to go down. So none of that affects Miami, Florida. One of the things is that the president of Miami, Florida, again, I'll put my fingers up and say allegedly, he's a big, he didn't go to school in California, but he's a big proponent of Stanford and University of California, Berkeley. The president of Miami, Florida, worked in the government of...
Radakovich?
No, he's the athletic director. I'm talking about the president. The president of Miami, Florida.
Julio Frank.
I know who you're talking about. He used to serve in the government of Mexico. I think, again, it does not affect Miami and Florida if they choose to try to get in a settlement deal with Florida State, North Carolina. It doesn't hurt or help them in regards to this vote.
And Greg, this is another report. I'm not sure if your sources have told you this too, but apparently, this was according to Fox Sports, NBC Sports, and ESPN, that ESPN was getting in contact with Jim Phillips and Greg Sankey to try to merge the SEC and ACC. Was that even realistic, or was that just BS? You think?
If there is a report out there, that's BS. No SEC school is going to go for a merger with the ACC. Why would they dilute their value that way? I'm not big on this merger talk, hardly at all. So.
Yeah, no. The reason why I asked that is because this was coming from a reliable source.
Well,
so I thought I should trust it. That's why I was asking.
I don't believe it for a second.
You don't think that's really realistic, because it would dilute even the smaller brands in the SEC?
SEC and the ACC are not going to merge. SEC has no interest in that.
Okay. Yeah, no, I just wanted to know that, because I hope... that was so confusing to me when I saw that report.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Great call. Wendy answered my question. ESPN owns the Gore. ACC has an exit fee. 3 teams are gone. No, it's not that simple. But I appreciate your comment. ACC owns the Gore. The ACC owns each of the ACC schools' media rights. ESPN owns the broadcasting license, the broadcasting rights of the ACC. But they do not own the media rights of each of the... If, let's say, Florida State left the conference tomorrow, the ACC. Let's say they put out $120 million. And let's say they joined the Big Ten. ESPN would still have the broadcasting rights of the Florida State games. And the money that they get would go to the ACC, not to the Big Ten. And then the ACC, per their bylaws, distribute the money to the schools in the conference. And since Florida State is a withdrawal member of the conference, the ACC would take the money that was supposed to go to Florida State and distribute it to the other ACC schools. The ACC owns Florida State's media rights. ESPN owns the broadcasting rights. I don't know how else to say it. Bob Thompson you check out anybody with any credentials in the industry, they'll tell you the exact same thing. There's been a lot of myths built around this, and I'm not here to pick on Florida State insiders or whatever. A lot of what's been going on out there is not the pathway that Florida State is going to take and could take to get out of the conference. And I think people are going to learn a lot in this. The composition of the ACC has changed, but the ACC Gore is not changing. If the dissolution theory had any merit to it, this would not be happening. They would not be adding 3 schools. It doesn't have any merit. We've been giving you the correct peek around the corner on this story. This is not the Florida State pathway out of the conference, nor is it North Carolina, nor is it Clemson. this story right here, this expansion, does not affect Florida State's ability to get out of the conference, either positively or negatively. It has no effect. None. We reported that 10 days ago, 9 days ago, 8 days ago, 7 days ago, 6 days ago, and reported to you today. It wasn't going to help or hurt. Jamie Thornton, all eyes should be on North Carolina. Yes, no question about it. There's been talks, indirect talks, not direct talks, indirect talks between North Carolina and both the SEC and the Big Ten. There's been talks of North Carolina and the Big Ten going on for over a decade, very easily. Everybody knows this. Holy smokes. Neither clears nor clutters the runway. Absolutely correct, Space Explorer. And I think here today, Friday morning, September 1st, people are going to realize this now. The Florida State insiders are going to pick up on this, and they're going to be saying this doesn't hurt or help us. We were trying to tell them that 10 days ago. This does not affect the story. It does not affect the main story of Florida State or North Carolina. So buckle up, brace for impact, stick with us here at Peek Around the Corner. The ACC, Holy Smokes Theater, we are in Act 2. This does not affect Act 2. The play is not shutting down. And in the play, there wasn't going to be an 8-vote dissolution. It wasn't going to happen. Pure cash grab. Clemson and Florida State are not happy, though, Ryan Thomas. This does not make Clemson and Florida State happy. This makes the other AC schools get a few more $1 million. Florida State gets a few more $1 million. And it does not clutter up their exit ramp. Hagen is just getting warmed up. Nothing says the Atlantic Coast quite like the Golden State Bridge. David Kreitzer. I'm not sure what type of shares Stanford and California are getting right off the bat. Not sure. I'm sure it's been reported out there. Let me check if any news, any more information has broken. I don't know. After reading my Twitter account, we'll see. We'll see what happens here. And I think people are, how do I say this? Do not build a huge dividing line. I'm going to make this perfectly clear. Do not build SMU no money for 9 years. Do not make, Thamo says 30%. Thank you, 12 Duck 72. Thank you, Devil Frog. Appreciate it. Do not build this big dividing line between Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, with Miami of Florida, North Carolina State, a Virginia Tech, and a Virginia. Yes, 3 of those schools voted no. 3, 4 of those magnificent 7 schools voted yes. But ultimately, the vote, however this was going to go, wasn't going to affect the exit ramps. It wasn't part of the negotiations. People are going to have a hard time coming to terms with that. We reported to you that 10 days ago. We were told flat out, serious, 3 different sources. We felt comfortable in saying that over and over again. And you're going to see that that is the truth when all this is reported out. Does not affect Florida State and what they're doing. So Florida State fans, if you're all upset, saying now it's even harder for your school to leave the conference, it has no effect. No effect on North Carolina. No effect on Miami, Florida. So they could vote yes. They pocket a couple million more a year. Florida State's going to get a couple more million a year in North Carolina. What I will say is that maybe North Carolina, Florida State are probably more affected by the optics of the Irish calling the shots, because that's what the optics look. Immaculate. Maybe not, but we have 3 coming in. The 3 to go out are picked. The 3 to go out are picked. Well, I got to think Clemson, Florida State, and North Carolina, as we would agree, are all pretty sure of a landing spot. I think a couple more of those ACC schools are going to have an SEC Big Ten landing spot. But nobody's picked yet because nobody has announced. Nobody's been able to get out of the gore. Therefore, none of those schools are going to have direct talks with the Big Ten or the SEC. Indirect talks, yes, but not direct talks. They're not doing that right now. Give us a call, 763-260-1333. This is a story about the ACC schools picking up a couple $1 million more a year, and with an insurance policy to take schools now, Power 5 schools now, because they're not might be available a couple years from now, if Florida State, North Carolina, and a few other schools find their way out of the conference. But this is not a story about some sort of big-time coordinated negotiations on making it easier for Florida State or North Carolina to leave the conference. So some would say, why not collect a few $1 million more a year? If it doesn't hurt us to get out of the conference, why not collect a few more $1 million a year? It gives them security when the top 3 leave. It gives them the security to be able to pick their backfield schools now. They have more of their choice now. But they were going to be able to backfill regardless. You guys, they weren't dropping below the 15 member. They were always going to be able to backfill before schools officially leave on a July 1st, whatever year that is. The ability for ESPN to renegotiate with the ACC doesn't happen when schools announce that they're going to leave or have the intentions of leaving. The membership drops when the schools officially leave the conference on a July 1st of whatever year. They were always going to be able to backfill ACC. The number was never going to go below 15. But acting now gives ACC the ability, the insurance policy, and the fact that now they can have some sort of control over the selection of who they get. And it was California and Stanford, and SMU greased the skids. Phone lines are open, 763-260-1333. Well, Stanford had to sign that grant of rights in 2036. I don't think Stanford's going to be paying a settlement or trying to get out of the ACC grant of rights within the courts. I think Stanford has given up their life raft to the Big Ten. I think they've given up on that. They came in at a very low evaluation. They were told this by the Big Ten. They tried to get some of their Olympic sports in the Big Ten. Here in the last few weeks, it did not work out. The optics definitely showed that Notre Dame won again. That's going to burn people up a little bit here. I don't blame them. I don't blame Florida State fans and North Carolina fans, Clemson fans. The optics are brutal. Notre Dame got what they wanted again. Again, the Fighting Irish got what they wanted again in ACC expansion. Holy smokes. No, I don't, again, Greg, does this mean that the Big 12 will have no opportunity to add an ACC school until 2036? What happened today has nothing to do with the exit ramps, negatively or positively. So it affected nothing. It didn't make it harder for Florida State to leave. It didn't make it easier. It was not part of the negotiations. We reported this 10 days ago, 9 days ago, 8, 7, 6, all through this last week. This was about ACC schools making a little bit more money and being able to select a backfield if North Florida State can leave. People are making this bigger than it was. We speculated on it. We thought maybe it was the bigger story. But we were told 3 different sources. We gave you the information. We reported it. Nothing was about the exit ramp. And no, there wasn't going to be 8 votes to dissolve the conference. So therefore, adding more members doesn't hurt the ability to dissolve the conference because they were never going to dissolve the conference. That is not in the Florida State Seminoles playbook. They talked about it. They looked at it. The Magnificent Seven looked at it, said it can't work. It would not relieve us of our obligations, our legal obligations. They have to beat the gore in the courts or they have to come up with a settlement. And this, what happened today, made no effect on that. It's going to take a while for people to wrap their arms around this. I get it. I get it. Does not stabilize. This does not stabilize the ACC. This move does not stabilize the ACC. It doesn't destabilize it. It doesn't make it more. That's not what this was about. I appreciate the questions. I appreciate the speculation. But this does not make it easier or harder for Florida State. It's already going to be hard. But adding schools at this time is not going to make it more harder. If there was no room to negotiate with the ACC to clearing out some of the scrap metal that's sitting in the exit ramp. It wasn't about that. Good comment. Yeah, immaculate, yeah. Those other schools are going to take those schools to court. You got to win this. You either got to win this in the court. When it comes to the ground of rights, either Florida State is sitting on something that none of us know about. I don't know about it. I can speculate. You all can speculate. I don't know if Florida State is sitting on something special where they did not get promised. They did not, ACC did not fulfill their promise to Florida State when they signed the extended grant of rights. Is it there? I don't know. But that's a possibility. The other possibility, the stronger possibility is Florida State says, what is your number, ACC? What is it? SMU just bought their way into the conference. Give us the opportunity. Give Florida State, North Carolina, whatever. Give us the opportunity to buy ourselves out of the conference. SMU bought their way in. We buy ourselves out. $120 million off the top for the exit fee. Now what do we need to give you to get out of the grant of rights? Is it $300 million? Let us know. Is it $400 million? Let us know. Are you not willing to settle with us? Let us know, and then we'll take you to court. That's what we think the Florida State playbook is. It's not about dissolution. That's why what happened today has nothing to do with Florida State leaving the conference. Does not affect them at all. Composition clause and all this other stuff is not part of the story. A lot of people have taken up a lot of time talking about it, and that's great. It's great for speculation. We've talked about it, but it's not part of the story. It's not part of the Florida State playbook. Yeah, thank you. You said it way better than I could ever say it, Ryan. It wasn't safety in numbers. It was safety in cash. Everybody got paid a little bit more. That's it. That's all this was. Everybody got a little bit more money. That's what it was. SMU greased the skids. California, Stanford coming at a discount. And ACC was proactive. They were able to pick the backfield members if Florida State, North Carolina, Miami, Florida, Clemson are able to leave the conference if they find a way through a settlement or in the courts. Again, give us a call, 763-260-1333. Breaking news, ACC is expanding. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe to this ever-growing channel. Smash that like button if you like the content. Share the video with your family and friends. And if you want to donate to this independent YouTube channel, hit that $sign in the comment section, and we'll get to your post, your comment, as soon as possible. A lawsuit could drag on for a long time. And that is why, Skull Ducky, that is why the Florida State Money Perch has told us that Florida State is going to give themselves a longer runway. The focus for 2025, and there's a strong possibility, Skull Ducky, that Florida State will make their intentions known to the ACC sooner rather than later.
Call from
Immaculate.
Immaculate, Mr. Hawkeye is on the line. The floor is yours.
Well, I guess that teaches me for questioning you, huh?
Oh, you should question me at every single thing I say. You should question. You should question my singing ability. You should definitely question my peaks against the spread. You should question the weight that I put on my driver's license. You should question everything, Immaculate. I am a golfer, so I should not be trusted.
Your sources proved out, though.
Yeah, they had it.
Your sources proved out.
But Immaculate, the point of this is the story is still there, right?
Oh yeah,
the huge story, it is there.
Of like UNC and NC State split. Like, wow.
Yeah. I don't think it's. Miami, Florida voting yet. Again, it's really not about the big story that you and I are on. So.
It seems a little bit like political theater at this point.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, who's voting yes, who's voting no.
Let me put it this way. It did not cost the ACC presidents who would love to rub elbows with California, Berkeley, and Stanford. It did not cost them anything to vote yes when they came to the conclusion it wasn't going to cost them anything if they wanted to exit the conference. I think that's the point here. But anyways, go ahead. I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you, Mr. Hawkeye.
No, you're good. I was mainly calling in for that. Unfortunately, I decided to stay up all night and watch the ASU game.
Oh, you did that.
So I woke up to this mess, and I'm like, oh, my God.
How did Rashada look?
What's that?
How did Rashada, the true freshman quarterback, how did he look for Arizona State?
He was great in the first half, and then I think the long wait and everything kind of messed him up for the second half. He wasn't as impressive in the second half.
Okay.
It wasn't bad, but, he looked like a rookie quarterback, whereas in the first half he looked like this amazing young phenom. So I tend to believe what I saw in the first half, and the second half was – that game went until 1 a.m. in the morning here local time.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to judge him on the play after that, but it got real close there at the end. Like, I actually kind of thought maybe Southern Utah might pull it off.
Wow. Well, yeah, Dillingham has a long ways to go with that program.
Yeah, but they looked pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think that they would look that good with everything that's going on with them. People talk a lot about Colorado and how many new transfers it is, but Arizona State is right up there. I think they were like the third highest when it came to the amount of transfers that they brought in.
Yeah.
So, I was somewhat impressed. Unfortunately, the late restart kind of put a damper on it, but just looking at the first half for what it was, they looked pretty good.
What did you think of Nebraska last night?
Nebraska is going to Nebraska no matter who's put in charge.
But did you think they were a little bit ahead of schedule? I know the Gophers aren't, I think we all agree they're taking a step back this year, but wasn't there some good stuff that you saw out of Nebraska last night?
I mean, we were getting hammered left and right, Big West stuff. But if I'm going to be honest, I think both schools have a little ways to go.
Yeah.
And what I saw out of these two teams that was impressive was not their gameplay. It was their drive and their desire and their will, just as players. But both teams have quite a ways to go in terms of gameplay.
Yeah, but I don't know if either team has the answers, though. I mean, Nebraska's very limited. Their roster, they had another injury last night to the wide receiver, Castaneda, whatever how you say his name, Garcia Castaneda. Jeff Sims, I mean, he's going to make some big plays. It's not like he's going to develop any here, right? Nebraska's limited. Minnesota, I would like to think it's a transition year. I hope it's not a start of a decline. But either way, we can't play bully ball this year. I mean, it's week one, but I don't want to overreact. Of course, I always overreact. But I don't know. I don't know, how much space is there for improvement. Minnesota, the quarterback, yes. He's got skills. More he plays, the better he can get. But there's deficiencies on that team that I think we're looking at 6-6 teams, both teams battling to get to a bowl game, and we'll see what happens.
Yep, I think that's pretty much it right there. I think, as you know, a lot of folks have talked both about Wisconsin and Nebraska, but they're still both kind of in rebuild mode to build up what those coaches want.
Yeah.
And while I don't think Wisconsin is down on that level, I also think that Wisconsin is not going to quite prove out to what people were hoping for. And Nebraska, he needs another year to continue to retool that team because they wanted it. They went all the way up to the end, and they definitely wanted it for him. But yeah, it's kind of hard to try to fight off the people who were saying, "Yeah, it looks more like Big West football," because it was a rough game. But
Well,
I enjoyed it just because of the fact that both teams didn't give up on it.
Yeah, it wasn't Big Ten West football in the sense that Minnesota usually can pound the ground game. So it's a little bit different in that aspect. But yeah, I understand why people were getting on that game. And oh well, that's the way it goes.
But so you think that everything in terms of schools that might leave, you think it's all still on board? Do you now maybe see UNC on the same plane in that regard as FSU and Clemson?
I've always have, except for the fact that they're not going to be the tip of the spear. I don't put Clemson on the same. What I've been told, Clemson is not going to be joining Florida State. Like Florida State will be the first one, sort of like the Colorado was at the center of the stage that whole time by themselves. Florida State in the Holy Smokes Theater is on the center of the stage by themselves. Clemson is watching Florida State. North Carolina is watching Clemson watch Florida State. So,
do you think that this also maybe gives the ACC more time to figure out who else they would invite to cover any other losses? Like if it was a Florida State that goes first, Clemson and North Carolina looking after them. But at that point in time, it might be more than just that. Yeah. They would also need more schools to backfill, right?
Yeah, you're right. They would need more and they're going to get the opportunity if that ever should happen. And it might be with some Western teams, right? You could see the possibility of more Western expansion. Now they got the little bit of beachhead out there in Stanford in California, or maybe another school in Texas, whatever. But yeah, it gives them time. It in this way, they were able to kind of select who they wanted, kind of. Whenever this implosion happens, they're only going to be able to really pick from the teams that are truly available, which might be only G5. We'll see what happens. We have to know when it's going to happen to really figure all that out. But you're absolutely right.
Yeah, the limited window of opportunity that they had on Stanford and Cal, I think determined this. And that's what we were saying for a while now, is that they only have so long before they have to make a choice in one direction or another. So I think this could still be part of a larger plan, but they absolutely had to go on Stanford and Cal now if they were going to do it at all.
Yep, you're right. Yep.
All right, well, I just wanted to call it and say well done. Your sources proved out again. That was pretty impressive that you had that.
Yeah, and, even a blind gopher picks up an acorn once in a while, and even the Gophers win a game with a walk-off field goal. Hawkeyes, go Gophers, baby. Go Gophers.
I got to say, I'm feeling a little bit better about the Hawkeyes right
now. Okay. I didn't want to hear that, but you just spoke the truth. So
well, you know what? I saw a little bit of your reaction video there, and you were having a great time. So that was really fun to see. So congratulations on the big win.
Appreciate it. Great call from Mr. Hawkeye R. Webb. Thank you so much for your super chat. I appreciate it. Soon, SMU versus Boston College on screen at a PATC theater near you. Thank you, R. Webb. Yes, Brett McMurphy. I guess he's put out a tweet. Let's go ahead and find it. Thank you for the chat. For everybody keeping your head on a swivel. Let me know the latest information. Well, I got a lot of stuff here. California, SMU, Stanford officially joined. We know that. Hold on, everybody. Hold on. Give me a moment. I don't know. Okay, we got to talk about this here. Thank you, R. Webb, for your generosity again to the channel. Appreciate it. Now, is Brett McMurphy, obviously this is a joke. This is a joke, Brett McMurphy. Updated ACC 2024 schedule. Clemson at California, at Stanford, SMU. Florida State at California, at Stanford, at SMU. UNC at California, at Stanford, at SMU. I think Brett McMurphy's having a little bit of fun with everybody. Holy smokes. Okay, let's get to your phone calls, your comments once again. The phone lines are open, 763-260-1333. Breaking news, ACC expanded. They have 17 full members of the conference, 17 football. He's trolling hard. McMurphy can be funny. Jamie Thornton had it first. What did you have? Oh, that's the reporter. Thank you for keeping your head on a swivel, Jamie Thornton. Appreciate it. SMU fans have their own private theaters. No, the PATC theater is not closed. It's in Act 2, early on in the play of the ACC. Florida State is up on the stage. We'll see what happens next. Clemson, North Carolina, they're in the front row, but Florida State's got the front. They have center stage. We'll be talking about more of that here. Now that we got clarification on some stuff, that story is not going away anytime soon. So I think we're going to go ahead and close this show up. We're probably going to go on live tonight in regards to this story, in regards to a more college football, another watch party tonight. So stick with us here at Peek Around the Corner. Keep your head on a swivel. When you leave, please subscribe to the channel. You get notified. Follow us at Flug Empire on X/Twitter. And we're going to be following this story like we've been following the ACC drama. Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, no votes, did not carry the day. Optically, it shows that Notre Dame, are they still calling the shots in the ACC? Holy smokes. Join us later tonight as we do a watch party. And of course, Saturday, watch party Colorado versus TCU, Penn State versus West Virginia, Saturday night, NBC. Join us for those watch parties. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining us on an emergency live show. Breakfast at PATC. The ACC is expanding. Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina voted no, but there were 12 yes votes. And once again, let's make it perfectly clear. As we reported 10 days ago and every day since, this does not affect, this action, this ACC expansion does not affect the exit ramps of Florida State, of North Carolina, of Miami of Florida, of Clemson, of Virginia. It does not affect it at all. There are big hurdles to exit the conference. This, what happened today, does not positively affect it or negatively affect it from a Seminole point of view. So keep that in mind. A lot of people are still getting it all mixed up out there. This does not hurt Florida State's getting out of the conference. It does not help, nor does it hurt. If you get anything out of today, please make sure you get that out of our reporting here at PATC. Until next time, from all of us at Peek Around the Corner, to all of you, please, 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 you all take great care of each other. Thank you so much.